Today, so I'm Morgan Lirette. I'm joined by Helen. We sit on the Environmental Sustainability Network Committee. We had our second birthday event last month, and just two things I wanted to share with y'all that came from that. So one is the name Environmental Sustainability Network. We've decided to change it to Sustainability Network so that we can better incorporate the three pillars of sustainability into our name. So environmental, social, and financial, rather than just environmental. And that will all be changing soon on our webpage, on the ICCROM webpage, and also on our socials. But just bear with us for a moment while we get that sorted. And the second thing was around communication. So in order to, we were asked, if we could sort of try to improve our communication by advertising events more in advance, but also setting reminders for events. So we've taken this on board, and we were originally hoping to have a function like this that exists on the ICCROM webpage. So like a live forum that we could send out messages and you would be pinged if you subscribe to that forum. That's not possible, unfortunately. So what we've decided to do is to potentially start a Basecamp, sorry. And what a Basecamp is, it's like a project management and team communication platform. It's free to use, and it would, anyone who wants to be involved and be pinged about stuff we're doing, could sign up to it, and obviously unsubscribe as soon as you'd like to. Thanks, Helen. She just popped in the link. But before we start that, we want to make sure it's useful. We don't want to create it if it's not helpful or if it's not what our members want. So I'm just going to pop a poll before we get into Helen's bit. If everyone could answer this question super quickly. If the ICCROM Sustainability Network started a Basecamp, would you use it? And I'll wait a few minutes for everyone to start populating it. Also, this is anonymous, so no, don't hold back. Okay, we're getting up to almost 80% of participants. I don't know if you can see the poll stats as it's happening. No? Okay, so we're 85% yes. So I think that's probably safe to say that we will start a Basecamp, and we'll let everyone know how you can sign up. So we'll be communicating that. And now we can dive into sort of the order of the day. Today, we're here to discuss green exhibitions and loans. So if you've attended the last few sustainability socials, what we've normally had is a panel discussion. So we've had a panel of experts in a certain field, and we've asked you to come with questions, and you can sort of engage in the sort of Q&A with these panelists. Today it's going to be slightly different. So I'll raise my hand up. I don't know very much at all about green exhibitions and loans. I have a bit of experience in exhibitions and loans in my conservation work. I obviously am sustainability minded. However, I've not practically connected the dots in a meaningful way. So I'm not an expert. And we have Helen, who will be giving a little presentation about what she's been doing in this area, and also how her work with ICCROM's Our Collections Matter Toolkit. So maybe some resources in there that might help people, and also potentially a lack of resources around more sustainable loans and exhibition practice. So yeah, today's a bit more of an open discussion. We want everyone to talk if they would like to, or put something in the chat. We have some questions prepared for you all, but we also hope that you'll sort of maybe provide examples of the perfect exhibition, green exhibition you've ever attended, or a case study of a great way to go about creating a green loan or whatever. So yeah, please share your experiences, please ask questions, and yeah, very happy to have you. So without further ado, I'm going to share the results of this Basecamp poll, so you know that, yeah, we've had 81% say yes, so we will get that started. And I'll hand over to Helen.
Thank you. I hasten to add that I'm also not an expert in this area, but it's been a really interesting project that I've worked on that's given me the opportunity to look at the loans out procedures that we have in place at the National Archives at present, and then compare that with what appears to be out there as best practice. So that's been really interesting for me, and I hope maybe some points that I bring across can just hopefully there's some things that might be useful to you, but also just raising discussion. And quite frankly, there's more stuff that I'd like to learn from all of you. Yeah, I'll just get going. So I'm at the National Archives in the Collection Care Department. I'm actually in the preventive and heritage science team, kind of span both of those with my sustainability hat on. With that, we as a department do have a sustainability action plan, and researching to improve our own sustainability of our practice is a part of that plan. One of the streams of the department is our loans and exhibitions team, and we've got a team of around 4 people typically involved in that. And for us, we have pre-COVID apparently up to around 30 loans per year, with sort of often more than one object is going off at a time. From what I gather, this can be quite small compared to like some of the major museums, for example, but can actually still be quite large for an archive. So we have our team of 4 who deals with these. These are national and international loans, and they've got a very well documented process in place to manage the process of the loans from start to finish. We don't have a policy, so we don't have an official loans policy that's out there. So for example, Tate doesn't it? And that's been very interesting for me to see. And I do wonder whether that's something that we want to look at doing, but being so small, maybe it's not. So it's something that I can put forward in the recommendations from my report, basically. In doing this project, we wanted to look at where we are with our loans out, and how sustainable are we at present, and how can we improve that. So to do that, I had a look at what I could find of best practice within the sector, and also had one-to-one discussions with our loans teams as well to get a picture of what we're currently doing, and also how this has actually changed over time. So I have a few sort of things really that I wanted to sort of share around this. The team have already been doing a really great job, to be honest, from looking at this, of looking at what's going on and the changes that have been going on in the sector to bring about changes in sustainability as these things have arisen. So obviously your recycling, your reusing of cases, for example, and lots of reuse of materials. And virtual couriering, which of course has come much more necessary during COVID, and also considering environmental condition requirements on a case-by-case basis. From looking at resources, there are a few practical recommendations that I'll suggest, but they're really quite minor, but maybe still of use. And because we do reuse a lot of materials, and it does then require storage, doesn't it, to do that. We have got a basement area, fortunately, that we're able to store some of the bigger things into cases. We have frames that we store and reuse where possible, and then they retain the cases for those frames as well. But we also end up reusing materials down to even bits of cotton tying tape. So Morris, who is fantastic at the packaging and getting very creative with that, and how can we make sure we where he's made some really nice folios, for example, that are able to be adapted to different sizes of documents, and multiple documents can be stored in one folio, for example, for sending off. So he's really been thinking about how can you make things that can be reused rather than having to make bespoke all the time. But he's got his stash of cotton tying tapes for reuse, for example. So one of the things around that would be, it can get a bit tricky tricky at times, can't it? With what have you actually got, so that understanding what's there and what you therefore don't need to get. So an inventory basically of these supplies and the specifications of them may help the team to just move through that process a bit quicker. Also, around the recycling bins, we do have the recycling bins, but what Morris had noted was that they're dotted around, and he does find that sometimes there is still, despite labels, a mixture of wastes when there shouldn't be. You know, we don't want this mixing of waste streams. So labeling and centralizing of the bins, he thought might help minimize this. So I'll be recommending that. Also, in terms of purchasing, basically, so the minute we've got masses of plasters out that we bought at some point because we had the funds, one of those issues, isn't it, of when you've got the funds, try and do something with it. And so we bought something that would be useful. There may well be more eco-friendly alternatives that'll be coming out, but until we've got through our stash of plasters out, we won't be buying any of it. Yeah, be mindful of that, and definitely as soon as the opportunity arises where we need to buy something more, we will be looking at that procurement. And in fact, Amy within our department is going to be working on a similar project to my own, just looking at all the materials within our department as a whole and how they are disposed of and where we're purchasing from, to try and ensure that we do have a departmental wide procurement plan that is more sustainable. And lastly, I'll be recommending about the communication. So I just think that we could actually do quite a bit more about this. They've done such a great job already, and even any little bit to inspire the public as to, we're thinking about it, and maybe it might inspire them. But also for the sector, the sharing of what we're doing, even if everybody's doing similar, it's really great in a case like this that we can then have discussion around it and learn new things, and who's been to the latest conference and so on, and any new tips from that. So I'll be recommending that. There were some larger recommendations that I'll be making, and these are things that we may well want to discuss, but I don't think they've got answers at the minute. I'm keen to know if anybody does have any more information on them. One is around impact measurement. So due to the complexity of kind of carbon calculating, as you know, we did actually add a carbon calculator into our loans process in 2012. So this, I think, was started because of a paper by Simon Lambert and Jane Henderson on the carbon footprint of museum loans. And it was a pilot study in Wales. And so it gave a really practical tool that you could try to use. But unfortunately, what's happened since then, I think it was tried sort of twice by the person who kind of put it in, but then I think we were lacking numbers and data to input, which obviously we're getting a bit closer on now, aren't we, with Stitch, for example. But also, as new team members came in, there wasn't training in how to actually use this, and it looked a little bit convoluted, a little bit like we don't quite know what we're doing, and consequently it wasn't taken up. So this is something I'm really looking forward to seeing from UKRG when they do theirs. I would really like to see what comes out from that, and to then trial that within our context and see if that works for us. But in the meantime, that was a really interesting paper around measuring environmental impact through the carbon calculating. But it also made the point that obviously this isn't the only impact, and that's really important. A recommendation I'm going to put forward, that how do we measure the more broader sustainability impact? You've got your economic, but you've also got your social, and it's so important to be maintaining that access to the collections. How do we calculate that and measure it? They did in that paper do an interesting method of creating an efficiency ratio, so an environmental efficiency ratio, where they divided the number of objects loaned by the carbon footprint. And I thought that's really interesting. So you're not saying it has to be all about the carbon footprint, but obviously the more loans, kind of the better. And you're getting that kind of ratio could maybe help in that. So I don't know if anybody's experienced using that. Thank you. Yes, that's the paper. Thank you. Data management is another area that intrigues me, because there is a lot of data that you've got to store. We have moved to pretty much all online. From it used to be, it was all printed out, very heavy on the paper. usage and inks, of course, but now it's predominantly all online. And with the fact you can use DocuSign, for example, even more so, everything can go online. So, this has been great in that respect, but there is that big question for the sector, isn't there, around digital and how sustainable is digital and what are the numbers associated with that, so we can really balance up paper versus digital and whatnot, and making sure that, so I mean, for the minute, basically is try and decrease what you're storing, isn't it? That's basically the way that we can decrease our footprint around that. But there's a lot of really important stuff you do have to store with loans, isn't there, that you've got to keep for a long time. And so I'll be just recommending that there's a bit of a review on that periodically. Are we still keeping what we need to and only what we need to, or have we let a bit more be stored, for example? And are we keeping it in a way that we're following fair data principles? So that's the findable, accessible, interoperable, repeatable, I think it is. Because that can be a way that means it's easier to access, obviously, so ultimately more sustainable way of managing your data. And lastly, about the research that we need. There's such big questions. We need, particularly around the environmental conditions, don't we? I hear there's quite a bit of pushback at times around, what we're stipulating we need for environment for the objects that are going out on loan. Obviously, it's super important that we, look after the collection, but kind of feel with the climate change continuing, it is getting harder, and at some point we're going to have to rebalance potentially, and where does that balance then lie? And from my perspective as a scientist, I'd like to know what's the science behind that. What is it that how much can you flex these conditions and allow for different material types? And so I'll be recommending that we participate in, support, conduct research to try and help find these answers. Last thing really is around the ICCROM Our Collections Matter Toolkit as well within this. So I will try to share my screen. Let's see if I can do that and share the right one, the right bit. Here we go. So you may all well be aware anyway, and we're partners with Our Collections Matter. So I kind of mention it everywhere, so apologies for everybody who already knows. Yeah, this toolkit is here and keeps growing, and I think we're at we're nearly at 300 resources on here now. The resources are those that may not be from our sector, they might be from other sectors, but have value for improving the sustainability of collections and collections management, and within the heritage sector using collections and through the conservation of collections, for example. So this is the page for the resource that I did use in the end for my project. So I looked at this particular one by CMAM, which was really great because it was 2020 to 2022, so created by that board of CMAM members, and from what I could gather from looking at other things on the internet as well, I really felt it did reflect very well best practice that there was. So it was a great resource to have found. In this case, this is a website, so it's nice, an easy website with a load of just useful pointers, but there's also carbon calculators, and with all of the resources on here, it comes with an OCM data sheet that tells you a little bit more. So because some of these resources can be very big, they could be really big reports or frameworks, very big documents that maybe you're not sure you've got time to go through, but you can go through the data sheet itself, and it can just maybe help you decide whether it is suitable or not for you. These here, it's showing you which of the sustainable development goals this particular resource can help you tackle. So when you actually go, I'll show you the main page in a moment, but when you go to the main page, that's one of the ways that you can get in to find this particular toolkit. the way they've set it up at the minute is that you're thinking in the headspace of, these are the sustainable development goals. This is what I'm doing at the minute. I would like to improve my sustainability in this area. Click on that. These are resources that can help you. What we have communicated to OCM is that I think for our sector, probably what we're coming at is probably like what I've come at it from, of I would like to improve the sustainability of my loans practice. So which ones relate to loans, and do a search for loans. So it hasn't got quite that angle on it, but they're working on it. And the way to sort of go about that at the minute would be just to think about, you know, what SDGs do loans address, and in this case as well, which of your 5 Ps. So it's currently tagged under planet, for example, and it's already saying it affects all of these areas, which are actions. So you would be able to find it again through that. Anyway, so yeah, this is how it links to SDGs. So just as a bit of a broader piece on our collections matter then. But what I did find though with this, I mean, I was trying to find something around loans, and I found there wasn't that many. And I thought, well, that's quite interesting, because there will be gaps. And I'm interested to know whether anybody else has got any resources that are free resources that I could put forward to OCM to put on here to help others. So I'd love to know those. So feel free to put that in the chat, or to email me afterwards. And I also have one more to share with you. Let me stop sharing, and then I can find it. And that's one that came about because I did attend. I attended the Urge X webinar, which is a new series of webinars that's starting. That was really interesting, and it touched on loans and exhibitions, and it was because of that that I came across this one. So I'll share it with you in case it's helpful to you too. And I think fundamentally I've finished my presentation there. Bit of a sort of tour of kind of what I've been doing, but also OCM Toolkit and sort of questions that I kind of have that I'd be very interested in hearing from you all about. Hopefully that link works. If not,
I don't think it's an actual link. It looks like it's a...
Can you copy and paste it?
Let's see. Let me copy and paste it in my browser and see if it works.
I've copied it from my document here. It's really quite an unusual location for it. It's a black and white printout document. Actually, I could just show you it as well.
Well, while Helen, if you want to look for that real quick, just so people have something to find, I'm gonna pop up Helen. So it was just to kind of get an idea about everyone's loans and exhibitions situations at their own workplaces. We thought we'd put together another little short poll. So we're gonna be asking you questions as well, but another little short poll just to see. So I've launched that now. So the first question, do you work for an organization or business that has a loans policy? And if so, does sustainability feature in that policy? And then the second question, do the loans exhibitions team at your organization or business consider sustainability in their decision making? So just to kind of get a flavor. And Helen, did you find?
I did.
Oh, fab.
So I will screen share again. There we go. Can you see that? I'll zoom down. It's quite. So this is what it looks like. They followed their advice of black and white printing and double-sided printing and whatnot.
I don't think I can see it.
Oh, can you not?
No.
Oh, sorry. Oh, here we go. Shares, because I didn't actually press share. That'd be my tech issue. All right, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Marvelous. There we go. So this is it. And yeah, lots of resources on the side. I really like the use actually of the QR codes. I thought that was an interesting way of doing it. And I think this related to an exhibition that had been done, and so they just thought they'd share it afterwards. And I thought, oh, it's really good. It mentions the CMAM resource that I ended up using, and so everything sort of aligns nicely. But it does go into a wider exhibition look at exhibitions and creating exhibitions and building materials and printing and things like that. So yeah, I'll just scroll down so you can see these things. A bit hard to see on they go quite small. I've not tried printing it out, so I don't know how well on an A4 piece of paper it prints out. I kind of imagine you need it a bit bigger, but it was packed full of really good stuff, I thought. So
yeah.
Helen, can I just ask, would you mind copying that URL and sticking it in the chat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I do chat from here. There we go. Ah, there we go.
Perfect.
Thank
you.
Sorry.
And I can confirm that works. That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Helen.
great. That's all right. So, and it's quite a few pages actually going all the way down. Yeah, for example, there's the printing, graphic design and things as well. And I know a load of things just aren't in our control, are they? And that's one of the things about my project. I've put in a scope, it very much is looking at just the things that are within our control. And one of the areas that I did wonder was, should we create a policy? But also if we look at our procedures, maybe identify the points where we might actually have influence over the borrower to a degree, to sort of be able to say, it would be great if you could use, instead of a perspex mounts, a cardboard mount, or something like that. Or but I wasn't sure of all these sort of points. And I know with the National Archives, you've got to be a little bit careful on, what you're saying and what, because it's supposed to be just guidance. You don't get too involved. There's certain limits and things, but I don't know whether that's the case for everywhere. Yeah, lots of useful references as well within all of that. So I'll stop sharing now, and
Thank you.
Totally want discussion. Oh, great poll results. Thank you.
So let me share those now with everyone. So we've had 73% of you answer, and for the first question, most of you who answered say, yes, we have a loans policy. I'm unsure if sustainability is included in that. And that would be the same for me. I agree. Interestingly, no one could definitively say, yes, we have a loans policy, and yes, sustainability is a feature. And then for the second question, it's almost neck and neck. Is sustainability considered in your loans exhibitions decision making? 53% yes, 42% unsure. So yeah.
Thank you. That's really interesting to know. Thank you.
Cool. So yeah, now it's up to y'all. If anyone has any questions, thank you so much, Justine, for sharing the references in the chat. We're going to create some notes from this event, and we'll make sure all of those resources are in those notes, so they won't be lost. So yeah, so before I come in with a question, does anyone else have a question or thought or anything to say?
It's all quiet. Oh my gosh.
It's all quiet.
I don't know if I've done all right with my presentation, or it's all been like, yeah, we totally all do this, Helen. Like, well, gosh.
Here we have one. Perfect. Oh, so sorry, Cecilia, go ahead. Yes, please.
It's more of a provocation than a question, I guess, and it's a term that Helen used a few times in her talk, that it's best practices. And I work in this project that Justine mentioned at the Getty, managing collections environments, and we've been discussing the use of those words for a while now, and trying to ban it from our vocabulary, because it for me it always implicates the best for the object. Like, we've always been looking at the object as conservators and registers and collection managers. And I think it still scary that when you say best practices, either we have to rethink the way you use it, but I think it's difficult, or I don't know, use something else, or like good practices are enough, I guess, if you're considering everything and the resources you have financially from the environment, from people giving access to those objects, and not just doing the best. it's the difference of doing the best and doing what's necessary, because I think we're overkilling in a lot of instances. We're having super stable environments where we don't need, we're building crates that could go to the moon and back, where we're just sending them across the country. We're like sending couriers for super simple installations. So yeah, it's just an idea of how we use those terms.
I've heard, so someone y'all might be familiar with, and it's called Caitlin Southwick, who runs Key Culture and Sustainability and Conservation. I've heard her say win-win-win. So win for the object, if that's the most important thing, win for the people, and so conservator, whoever's collection care professional dealing with the material. So not, I guess not using toxic materials would fall into that, and then win for the environment. So a win-win-win scenario is how I've heard that sort of idea, sort of that idea communicated. But I agree. What do we mean when we talk about best practice? Is it best for what should be the global goal of continuing life on this planet? Probably not. We have some questions in the chat. So reuse of materials, how can this be communicated to / encouraged with borrowing institutions? Does anyone have any examples of that in their own workplace or ideas? Something that's come up in my workplace recently is, so again, I work at the British Library, which is in a center of London, in a sort of area of London called the Knowledge Quarter. So we have the British Museum, British Library, the Crick Institute, UCL, a few different organizations all sort of promoting knowledge, Google as well. And something that the Knowledge Quarter has just set up is something called Warp It. So it's a sort of materials eBay marketplace, really, except it's not purchasing, it's reusing materials between a collaborative of organizations. We haven't started officially at the British Library yet, but it's something that's being looked at. Don't know if anyone else is on something similar, like Free Cycle or.
We have it in our organisation, which is Historic Environment Scotland. Quite a few of the institutions in Scotland are using it.
Do y'all use, are y'all sort of trading exhibition loans materials as well?
I see a lot of furniture. It's often the main thing. I certainly put up some sort of conservation materials recently and had no interest in them. So I'm going to have to go out with Warp It. Yeah,
I know at the British Library we've donated exhibition sort of fit out things, so that the more so not materials designed to enclose collection materials, but sort of like the fluff, things that make the exhibition pretty. So I know for Harry Potter exhibition a few years ago, we had lots of fun little bookshelves and things that were donated to schools and charities, but nothing so far as I know about reusing practical sort of exhibitions and loans materials or crates. So if no one has any.
I thought there was something that you could use to swap materials, but I can't for the life of me think now what it was. I know we've got rid of display cases to some smaller organisations, and I'm sure my sister worked at the Natural History Museum briefly in the estates department as their environment and as their sustainability person, and I think that they did some disposals through that, but I think it's rare for a museum to have the estates having an actual sustainability person, isn't it? So yeah, that's really going to bug me now, but I don't.
Is it not Museum Cycle or Free Cycle or something?
Yeah, but like a museum specialist one.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm sure. I'll have to ask some of my colleagues. I wasn't going to come today. It was going to be my colleague Joe, but at the last minute he couldn't come because he's doing more of the sustainability stuff for I'm at National Museum Scotland, and we're trying to do things like materials testing of more environmentally friendly materials and things like that, and one of our latest exhibitions, we had the exhibition team designed it so that the case cores within the exhibition are on, it's MDF, but rather than as they would usually do a complete MDF case core, they've done metal legs and then just a wee kind of MDF bit at the top so that the metal legs can be unscrewed and used for the next exhibition. So I was quite pleased that they'd done that. That exhibition is still up for the first one, so it is yet to be seen if those metal legs are going to be reused, but I think the idea was that it would save storage space. They don't ever save the case cores because of the bulk of storing them, but this was going to be a way around it for them. But yeah, that's what we're doing. So
like flat pack.
Yeah, yeah,
amazing. I think storage always comes up as an issue.
It's yeah.
We have the same here with book cradles. So we would historically make 3D print sort of perspex book cradles that specifically fit one book. And even if you could store all of those book cradles from every exhibition, you would have to find a system where you could write down the angles that you need so you could quickly find it. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah. We've tried to think about like packing materials and things like that, and because we're a museum, obviously everything is slightly different size, and I'd be interested if anybody had worked out any kind of more reusable packing materials. We use a lot of like jiffy and bubble wrap when stuff is going, like being transported more, and we our best idea was that we could have some sort of duvet and a duvet cover that was made out of synthetic materials, but you could take the duvet cover off and wash it so that it didn't, when it got dirty, but you would reuse the duvet, but that seemed a little bit too mad. So yeah.
I think Lynn had her hand up.
Yeah, just to go back to the stands for the books. Here at HES, we've been making them out of scraps of mint board. We quite often have, like really narrow strips after a mint board. A standard window mint has been made, and they just make the perfect book support. And I do a method where it's sort of self-supporting, so it's one whole strip, and the two ends kind of join at the bottom under the book. But yeah, whether I haven't done any weight loading on it. You're kind of you put the book on and go, yeah, that looks okay. It seems to be holding okay, but it doesn't feel very official or whether there's some fantastic program out there that you can enter data into and it tells you exactly everything you need to know to be perfect. So it's quite kind of homemade. Is anybody else making mint board book supports?
I think we can do it apparently, but the cost apparently that we would charge for it on the hourly rate means that actually they then advise the borrower to go to somebody else to go make them. So but they often then don't fit with the exhibition design, from what I hear.
Helen? Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm here now.
Hello,
So I do apologize. Hi.
Hi.
So
Natalie
sorry.
leads our London exhibition team, so she'll be great to have on board for any questions and things relating to that. We were just discussing about the book cradles, and we've got perspex ones, but also the discussion around the card-based one. Lynn was saying she's got a method, and Rebecca, I don't know if your hand relates to that or something else.
No, it was just going back to reusing and recycling sort of wrapping materials for painting. So I shall be quiet for a moment while that question goes on.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know, Natalie, if you've got anything to say on the book cradles from our part.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, I'm just sort
We
of coming
store
in here.
them anyway.
Yeah. But so say if a book cradle is needed, we do have the facilities in-house, but I think, as Helen was saying, it's quite resource intensive for one of our conservators to make those perspex book cradles, and I think only a couple of people actually know how to use the equipment. So if a borrower would like those those a Perspex one, we basically give them the measurements and they can create it. Often they'll either keep it, or if they have no need, we'll keep it. We'll keep it because we could use that again for that book. In terms of cardboard, I don't think we've had a request for that, but I don't think it's something that we wouldn't be open to.
I think, sorry, Natalie. I think what's really good about it is that, if somebody says, oh, we've got this last minute loan, oh, it needs to go to such and such place next week, can you make a book for it? It means like, yeah, actually I can, because, you've not got to go, well, I need to go to this supplier to order it, and you can just kind of whip it up with what you've got in the studio. So it can be useful.
That might be useful we do as well loans, but we do day displays as well.
Yeah,
So that
exactly.
could be,
Yeah.
that could be interesting. Sometimes we just use, plastic book wedges if it's really last minute, if it's for a volume. But yeah, okay. Is that available? Is there like a how-to guide available, or?
I think it's just something that there maybe is something online. I would have to have a look. I think it's just remembering somebody showing it to me at some point and kind of recreating it. As I say, it's a bit sort of homemade. But
check that
yeah,
out.
I think I've got one. Wait a minute.
We've also
So,
just
like,
had in the chat.
just like this kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful.
Just homemade version.
It would
And
be
thanks
great
to-
if we could put it on the website, couldn't we? If there was a way that we could,
Yeah,
highlight it and put it in
let
our
me see if
resources
there's
section.
let me see if there's a how-to guide out there.
So Deborah Vale just put in our chat a PDF of cardboard book
Really?
supports.
Oh, thank
So
you.
there we go.
That's it.
Any last words on book supports? All right, I'll hand over to Rebecca then.
Sorry, I've just.
Oh, muted.
Hello there.
Hello.
Sorry, I just managed to minimise my screen and I went to take myself off mute. So that's all the fun. Here we go. So yeah, I just wanted to go back to kind of reusable materials for packing artwork, and some. So I work for National Trust, and some of our colleagues in one of our internal studios are using kind of furniture blankets as soft, like to use instead of bubble wrap for short journeys for furniture. So they're just trialing that, and also kind of Tyvek bags with, I think I've seen that in the chats as well, with sort of offcuts of soft materials inside as reusable kind of padding. I'm also part of a group with English Heritage and the major national galleries in the UK, and we're looking, we're split into two groups, and we're looking at more sustainable options for packing flat art, so paintings, works of art on paper, and doing some research into that. And there's another group that's looking into crates as well. So yeah, we're just at the outset, so watch this space as well.
Oh, fantastic. Where will the results be shared on that?
So I think we've got, so I know my colleagues have been in touch with the Sustainability Network. We're hoping to do a paper for, you're holding a conference maybe January next year. So we're looking, fingers crossed, so when that arrives. So yeah, we're just at the outset and hoping to hold some workshops this afternoon. So more than happy to kind of update on the network. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Lorraine.
Hi everyone. So it was something that was prompted by what Rebecca has just said, and it follows on from Cecilia and Justine about this idea of best practice, and actually being more flexible in the way that we work and what we use within our practice. So Preservation Equipment contacted me a few months ago looking at a solution for their waste material, as they call it, that comes at the end of the box making cycle and when they have other card and paper. What they want to do with it is make it into a honeycomb material that can be used to pack boxes. So to pack boxes when things are in transit. I trialed the question on my social media to say, would conservators use this? And it got roundly poo-pooed by everybody. But actually, if you're only using it for once, so if things like pest infestations and raising the relative humidity and all of those sorts of things, but actually, if it's only being used once or it's being used once or twice, it's not in contact with the material long term. It's on that short journey. What is the harm? So I'm going back to the thing about being more flexible about what we use, because this material is being generated and it's not being reused, but there's the potential to reuse it.
Definitely. And then I think, Catherine, did you want to come in on that?
No, sorry, something completely different, but I will just, I have to go very shortly because of childcare. I'm also on the ICCROM Scotland committee, and I think we are going to be trying to organise a 5-minute presentation sessions on sustainability stuff in the future. So I'm just like cross-advertising basically for everybody to look out for that, because I think there'll be a call for sort of talks and stuff coming up soon. So just to get that in there. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Catherine. Natalie, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it was on Lorraine's point about raising the humidity in the crates and things. And I think, Helen, did you mention the IPI project?
No, actually, in the end, I didn't mention that. That's one of the other areas of research that we're participating in. Feel free to go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, there's a really interesting project being headed up by the Image Permanence Institute in the United States. We are a case study, and what they're doing is they're sending out data loggers for crates of objects that are going on display, and they're doing this all over the world for a variety of different trips. For us, it's actually a trip to the British Library, which is just across London. They're also doing international trips, and they're actually looking at the kind of gathering and quantifying the buffering effect of different case materials during different journey trips as well. And I think in terms of sustainability, this would be really, really interesting. And especially, it just made me think Lorraine's point about raising the humidity of these different materials, like using these different materials might raise the humidity. That project could support kind of just give you actually evidence and data of whether this is the case or not, on using different materials. So I think they're in the process of gathering a lot of this data, but they will be sharing that soon, I hope.
Natalie, could you put the details of that project in the chat? That might be quite useful for our group.
I think Justine just potentially did.
Okay. Oh, brilliant! Thank you.
I think that's the point, Natalie. It's having the data to support the argument. It's not a question of simply saying, no, we won't use this because it's new. It's having the data to be able to say, we won't use this because it's new, because of X, Y, and Z, or actually my assumptions around why we wouldn't use this have been disproven by the data, and therefore we will now use it.
Exactly. Yeah. Here we go. Cost-efficient environmentally response preservation methods for preparing paper-based objects for transit and display. That is the project I think that we're taking part in. So if you go on the Image Permanence Institute, the link in the chat, it'll tell you more about that.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Cool.
This is great, guys. I'm sad that we only have 5 minutes left.
I know. So many useful tips and interesting points. Definitely the thing on the flexibility is really important, isn't it? And it's needing that sort of science sort of behind it, but getting creative about how you can provide what you need. So like with the bags, Tyvek bags, and the bits of plastozoa in them, you know, things like that as well. I'd be really interested to see more about this honeycomb product, and because once you get your hands on it and you touch and feel it, I think you'll get more of an idea as well about its capabilities and where you might find it helpful, and just the fact that it's come from recycled material, you know, maybe it can go in alternative ways. Maybe it's not packaging, maybe it's something else, but you don't know till you see it. I don't know, are they getting a sample, Lorraine, at all?
So it will be made from materials that we use in conservation and preservation of paper-based archives. So it will have passed, it will meet all of the requirements and the standards.
Fab.
They haven't made a sample of it because in order to make the sample, they need to buy a machine, but it's not worth them investing in a machine if the conservation community are just going to turn around and blanketly say, no, we're not going to use that.
Yeah,
It's a 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. The only sample that they can show you at the moment is one that you can buy if you, for example, you're moving your house. So there's a commercial variety of it available, just made from old cardboard, which clearly is not what we would be using. So there is a version of it where we can touch and feel, but not what preservation equipment will be using. And all of the conservation suppliers are really keen to help us.
That's lovely. Yeah, that's really good. It's about us then sort of meeting halfway, isn't it? And yeah, trying to meet halfway. So
I want to get Natalie, was that an old hand or a new hand?
No, it was a new hand, just to say, it sounds really interesting, Lorraine, this new material. I wonder if an institute or a lab would be interested in actually doing some tests to start that evidence collecting, maybe on the types of materials already available. And yeah, if you say it is just the types of materials we use day to day, then
yeah,
it should be quite easy.
And get back to you, Natalie. We can start something off.
Yeah.
Well volunteered.
And before we run out of time, Deborah, did you have a question?
Yeah, real quick comment. Hi everyone. I'll try with my camera on. If you can't hear me, shout and I'll turn it off. Thank you. I work with a lot of regional museums, small museums, and I'm trying to, in all the training and all the advice I give now, I'm trying to put environmental considerations in there to try and give them some courage to move forward. But the pushback that I'm getting is that people are scared, because although there is data coming out, and I mean, the links in this chat are fantastic, thank you so much, we've got a fighting chance of understanding some of it. But a lot of the really smaller institutions either are not going to understand it simply because they don't have the background in the heritage science, or they absolutely do not have the time to understand it because there's one of them and they're running an entire site. So what I think we need as a next step for getting this into smaller places as well as the big institutions is some really easy to understand kind of certification almost of the different processes, the different changes in procedures, as well as materials. So if you're saying to somebody, like I was doing condition reporting training yesterday and trying to get them to, when they make a recommendation, to not automatically make a recommendation, everything should be 50% humidity and a fluctuation of this in 24 hours, because they know that's safe and it's their safety blanket and their security because it's what they've read in a document. But they don't have the time to do the extra mile. And so we need some simple things that are presented with some voice of authority that they can use to give them that confidence. Otherwise, it's going to get as far as us, but it's going to get no further.
Definitely.
That's a really great point.
Natalie, if you want to come in, yeah, please go ahead.
I think for us, we also are working as a National Archives. We work a lot with the archive sector development team in the National Archives, who work with the archive sector as a whole. So the regional archives, from private archives to county archives. And it's something that's also come up in discussions there, and we're actually looking at providing some advice and tools that kind of like simple modeling tools where you can input the relative humidity, input the temperature, and it will kind of tell you kind of the current standard and if it meets that standard. So kind of these ready-made tools designed for conservators, but also archivists as well. So it's something that's on our radar. Deborah, if you'd like to stay in contact about that, I think that would be quite cool.
Lovely. Well, yeah, really sad that we're at time. This has been really great. And maybe it's just this should be a continuing conversation, actually, and we can explore that on our side. While I'm saying thank you to everyone for attending, I have one last poll, and this is one we run every at the end of every sustainability social. So it's also anonymous, so feel free to answer truthfully. But just if you enjoyed this and if you'd like us to hold more, and then we always ask what sort of topic you might want to explore. If the topic that you want to explore is not in that question, that second question, you feel free to pop it in the chat. And we can workshop some ideas and maybe use Basecamp to sort of poll you in real time to decide actually definitively what should we talk about in our next social. But yeah, this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this format of us speaking more and being, you know, almost like a proper network. And I really hope we get to continue this conversation and continue this format where we see faces from different places and get to share knowledge. It's been great. I want to thank my colleague Helen for you know, sharing some of the work she's been doing with us, and thank you all again for attending and speaking with us. It's been fab.
Thank you for managing all the questions. I'm sure there's so much that has come up in the chat. I've not been able to cover it, but we're going to pull it together, aren't we, so we can get the useful resources all out.
Yes, we're going to pull it together. Exactly, we'll pull it together, and we will share everything on Basecamp too once we get that up and running. So just so you can see the poll, everyone said yes, so that's great. Thank you. 21 people out of the 21 there. That's, I think it's lovely. And then also the next one was life cycle and conservation preservation materials, which actually kind of fits into this conversation anyhow. So that feels like a nice place to go from here, but we will we'll let you know. We'll see you on Basecamp, hopefully. So thank you all, and y'all have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Oh, Natalie's calling me. No, that was great. Perfect time now coming in. I totally forgot to mention that other thing. Yeah, and it went, yeah, so well. I'm sorry, I completely rambled. I have no idea if it made sort of sense with the presentation, but like it got things going, didn't it? We had some good discussions. And
definitely.
Do we get to keep the info from the polls? Because I didn't write it down in the end.
So yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to stay on, to make sure I get that. So I can, I always forget how I do this. Okay, so there's something with the, okay, so I'm gonna save the chat because I can do that first. Save chat, copy, and I'm gonna pop it into our drive. Okay, let's see. Oh, I never know where it always says it saves this chat, but I have no clue.
Does it go onto your own? Shall I try saving as well? Shall we see if I can?
Yeah.
Is it going to like your downloads? Or actually, you know what? It might go into a Zoom folder. It makes its own Zoom folder.
That's exactly what it does. Oh wait, I found it.
Oh, well done, because I'm not sure I can.
Okay, so let me. What does it look like?
Save chat.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so I have it. I'm just going to rename it. So it's in. I've put it in our drive. So sustainability social 3 chat. Okay, so that's saved. Now let's see if we can save the poll information, because I'm not 100% sure how I do that once the meeting finishes.
Oh gosh, yeah, and they were really interesting. I should have added the thing about the numbers, because that would have been interesting. And somebody commented maybe what we should ask is about what roles are considering sustainability, I think is what they were trying to say. So that was quite interesting as well.
Okay, I think I found out a way to do it. So if I go, I'm downloading all the results, and then I will put them. Okay, so fab. Now if I go into our drive and I upload some files. see.
So very interesting point by Deborah actually at the end there as well about, you know, really needing digestible, just what you need to do for those that can't think about it, don't have time to think about it.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's kind of the same also with the how to make a mount, you know, mount board thingy,
Yeah,
book stand.
yeah, definitely. Okay, so I've downloaded everything, but actually what I'm going to do as well, let's see if I can, I'm going to try to take a little screenshot of them, because annoyingly,
Great idea.
when it downloads, it sends you it gives you an Excel.
Oh right, it's not quite as
it's not as
pretty.
quite as no. So let me save it. So sustainability social poll 1 of 3. I'll save it to my desktop and I'll just pop it on. Oh, good. Save. There we go. Okay, so that's that one.
Have you managed to get them?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
great.
I'm just doing my
You
little...
can make them quite big as well.
Mm-hmm. Just my little okay, sustainability social poll 2 of 3. All right, one last one. And this is, okay, so snap and stick.
It was really hard to manage though. There's so much sort of going on, and when you're talking as well, and all the thingies, I just don't know that we quite got all the really great points that were coming up.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's difficult, but I think what's good about the sort of informality of this all is that I think people probably understand as well.
Yeah.
I found with doing the panel discussions before, even though it was only slightly more formal, I felt like I had to be on a bit more, you know, I felt a bit more pressure. Maybe I'm just being more relaxed with it, but
and it's really good Justine was here because she's going to be presenting in October. That was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So some great stuff that she's put in.
Yeah, she's lovely too. I've done some stuff with her for key culture. Mm-hmm. And I think and also she wasn't working in this sort of arena before she joined Key Culture. And I think she's been at her job now maybe about a year.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, I feel really, really happy for her actually.
It's Deborah, was it Deborah Walton? Is that right? Who,
yes.
So I need to, because I put my email address in at the very last minute, but for her to get in touch with Natalie because it would be useful for them to discuss on, you know, what she's preparing, say, to what bite-sized stuff for smaller organizations, you know, kind of is needed, or if we manage to create some, maybe she wants to trial it out or something, that would be really great. But we didn't do a swap of email thingies, you know, but
yeah.
I did find I can't actually I wanted to thumbs up things and I couldn't thumbs up comments unless I did something wrong. So I wasn't very engaged within the conversation.
No, you know what? I think I'm so used to using Teams now. I couldn't find how to do the little thumbs up either. I'm not sure it exists in Zoom. I was so,
maybe that's it.
Yeah. Do you use Teams as well?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, and you can reply. So now I've just replied to Natalie. Oh golly, it's 10 past. I might have to go. But thank you so much. That was really great, and thank you for letting me waffle on about it all. It was also deathly quiet afterwards. I was like, have I said something really bad? And it was a really good point about the best practice.
Yeah.
I'd actually used that term because I'd seen it in one of the loans team members had written, you know, that what they were doing. So I can definitely change that.
Yeah.
And to sort of because very much we are looking at, you know, well, the best practice could be that you are flexible. I mean, that could be the best practice, could it, rather than saying it has to be fixed. But yeah, that's fine, and a really interesting point. And if they've been talking about it, be maybe something to bring up another point. And then for the next one, then very interesting that they want life cycle stuff, because we will have just then had in 7th of September, we'd have had Mike Shaver talking about the plastic stuff, which is supposed to be a bit life cycle-y stuff as far as I was of the understanding. So if we've gone to that webinar, it would fit nicely to sort of follow on after the webinar with this particular social on life cycle stuff. But then if you've got Stitch as well, haven't you, for your life cycle analysis? And
but it could be we could do a few. We could, I think it might be a topic that might need like a series of socials rather than,
that's true,
one, because there's definitely loads to talk about. Okay. Sorry, I'm just doing everything in the background, so I know it's there. Thank you. But okay, everything, we have the chat, we have the poll results in Excel and in sort of picture form.